Hello, everyone. I've published what I believe was one of the very first exploratory studies into executive coaching back in 2001. And I've been researching and evaluating coaching programs in organizations ever since. So in all honesty, I feel I know a little bit about it. What that first study found was that executive coaching was all about elite groups, top leaders, future talent. And the purpose was often to combat loneliness at the top. And things are really, really different now, and I would suggest likely to be in the future. So later in the 2000s, I was a founding director of EMCC, so that was a long time ago. But more recently, I've been looking a bit more at the barriers to effective coaching. So I spent the first 15 years looking at how organizations can use this method called coaching well, and then I realized there's an awful lot getting in the way of that. And so I've published an article in the International Journal of Training and Development specifically about the coachee view and perspective on coaching. And quite soon I'm going to be publishing the results of an evaluation from a huge virtual coaching program which actually aim to improve employee well-being. So although I'm going to talk about the future of coaching, I think it's worth me being clear that my take is specifically as an outsider, a coach and researcher, and I look at the organizational context and what coachees, if I can call them that, your employees, think about what's going on and whether it's working or not. So I'm not a coach, I'm not a trainer, and I'm not a representative and awarding body. So I guess that means I can say it how I see it. So I've got the benefit of being independent in that sense. But in the 20 odd years since I've been doing research, I've witnessed an explosion in spend on coaching, on the number of coaches, the spread of internal coaching models, the manager as coach philosophy. I've also seen the increased professionalism and accreditation of coach training and supervision. So that's all good, but a lot of poor practice has spread as well as good practice. Just a little, two things I want to say about current practice of coaching in organizations, if I may, before we look at the future, because they're things that are going to really affect the future. So I think the two big challenges right now that's come out of recent research, but also my own practical experience of evaluation within organizations, suggest there's two sets of key questions for organizations to reflect on now. And one of those is, are we all clear about the purpose of the specific coaching engagements that we've got? So that's about, are we clear why are we using coaching? What is the problem it's solving? Or what is the culture it's supposed to be enabling? And how do we ensure that the coaching continues to serve those needs? So that's the first thing, all about the link, the line of sight to purpose. And that can disappear over time. There might have once been a clear link, but organizations' contexts change, and is it still meeting the right need? Or did we ever know why we were doing it? Was it just the trendy new thing to do? So the second area is, where is our evidence of impact? How are we measuring the results from all these investments in coaching? So I would say that, you know, some organizations do those two things really well, but they're tough questions, but they're really important. They're basic questions. Why are we doing it, and how do we know if it's effective? But I see an awful lot of companies who struggle with that. So I think it's worth reflecting on that, because we need to take that forward and make sure that we adjust or tweak what we're doing as needs change. So to the future. So it makes sense to me that workplace coaching is going to be shaped by work itself, where work itself is going. And just to keep things simple, I would summarize those the trends in work that would affect coaching as in three ways, really. It's about changes in work, changes in the workplace, and changes in workers themselves. So I think those are the three trends in work that we need to look out for as people who care about coaching. So let's reflect on how the job or work, let's say, of a leader's changing. We've already heard that organisations need leaders who can manage change better. They'll want people who can listen, give feedback, problem solve collaboratively. But so to support this, I would suggest that the content of what goes on in coaching is likely to change. More support towards well-being, burnout prevention. I think we heard that from Lou earlier in her introduction. More about the state of mind, inner self, and how to bring your authentic self as a leader to work. Probably more team-based coaching. So less about a good leadership habits, less transactional things. But if we consider how the workplace is changing, where, when, and how someone works has already changed, with flexible working in its broadest sense, probably here to stay. But actually, I think coaching has really responded well to that. And we've seen an acceleration of an already existing shift towards virtual and remote coaching. But for the future, will coaching practice similarly adapt to organizations' increased use of metaverse, AI, virtual reality? And if you think about BMW, according to the trade press, BMW are already using metaverse to relate to its next generation of consumers. So will coaching do the same for the next generation of workers and leaders? So how are we going to adapt to that? So the third thing is to consider that workers themselves are changing. So as jobs and workplaces change, the demand on individual employees also changes, and leaders. So that makes sense. So where, how, and when people work will differ, but they're all likely to be more time poor with more hectic schedules. So to me, this means there'll be more demand on coaches to achieve results in shorter and shorter sessions, and to find ways of extending the benefits of coaching in between, but way beyond the end of formal sessions. Also, I think the need for personal branding at work is likely to accelerate. We're already seeing that starting. And that means coaches helping people be clear about their point of view and what they uniquely bring to their organization or its customers. A really big trend I expect to see is greater use of coaching for the whole workforce, developing the whole workforce, widening access to many more staff and even non-staff, contractors, people who deliver services on your behalf, third parties, whatever you want to call them. So we're not talking about elite groups. I'm expecting it to be something for all staff and funded beyond your actual contracted employees. So it won't just be elite groups. So look, I hope you're pleased that I'm not expecting the end of coaching. There's going to be plenty of demand, in my opinion. Managing that demand will be more of an issue than whether there is any. But in summary, to start off, something to discuss, something for you to kick against, I would really urge coaches and employers to step back and be clear about why coaching is being used now, what you're going to use it for in the future to cope with all this demand, and most importantly, how do you know if it's effective or not? Thank you, and I look forward to your questions and discussion.